all of these things are called entitlement programs, which is a fancy word for saying the government made a promise to you, and a whole lot of people are dependent on that promise, and there's not enough money to pay for those promises. So like in the US, you take Social Security. The average Social Security check right now is $1,900. Not a lot of money, but about 60 million Americans depend on that amount of money. In the US, Social Security, this is government data, not me. You can do all this stuff online. The government is telling us that in 2033, that's around the corner, the Social Security is going to be underfunded and they're going to have to cut the benefits. Now, what they're talking about is cutting the benefits by 20%. You have a lot of Americans that that's going to be a real problem for. Every country's got this issue because people are living longer. Governments have more debt than they've ever had. I am here to tell you, it's a cliche term, but no one's coming to save you. You're going to have to save yourself, and you're going to have to take your personal financial well-being more seriously now than ever before. And if you do, you will be in great shape. If you don't, you will be dependent on a system that is buckling.
One of the things in I think it's the 6th point of the 6 things that couples get wrong is waiting too long to pay off the mortgage. What do you mean by that? I actually had a friend contact me and ask this. They said, Stephen, I've got some cash that's been given to me, I think through an inheritance. Should I pay off my mortgage or should I go invest in the stock market, in the S&P 500 or something else?
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to say because I'm not a financial advisor.
So if you called me up and you said, David, what should I do? I'd go, Stephen, what's the rate on your mortgage? Then you'd say, well, David, I got a mortgage 5 years ago and it's 2.5%. And I'd say, okay, well, that's a really low rate, Stephen. You know what? You can put the money in a money market account right now and make more than that. So maybe you don't need to rush to pay it off as fast as possible. But if you've got a mortgage that's 6 or 7 or 8%, it's a no-brainer. The biggest thing I can tell you about paying down your mortgage early is actually really simple. Here's ways to do it. If you make one extra payment a year on a mortgage, you'll take a 30-year mortgage and you'll pay it off, depends on the rate, 5, 6, 7 years sooner. So you can go online, you can run a calculator. Today you don't even need calculators, you just run the question. You put in your mortgage, you tell Gemini, here's the size of my mortgage, here's my mortgage payment. If I make an extra payment a year, how many years faster will I pay it off? And how much will I save? And you'll see the number. When people see the number in black and white, they go, oh, I've got to do that. Now here's the key. Make that payment automatic. The easiest way you make your payment automatic is either make one extra payment at the end of the year or take your mortgage payment and increase it by 10%. So if your mortgage payment is $1,000, make an $1,100 a month mortgage payment and tell the bank you want to add that to the principal. When people do that, they need to make sure, though, that money is actually paying down the principal. And another way to do that is a biweekly mortgage payment plan, where you take your mortgage, you split it in half, you pay half every 2 weeks. That'll also pay your mortgage off early.
Prenuptial agreements. I'm engaged.
Yep.
Should I be getting a prenup?
So I would tell anyone who's getting married, number one, if your incomes are not the same, you should get a prenup. Number two, if you both have good incomes, you should get a prenup. Number three, if you're in your 30s, you should get a prenup. You would never go into a business without a contract. Marriage is the ultimate contract. It just is. Now, is it romantic to do a prenuptial agreement? No. Does one person in the relationship typically not like doing a prenup? Yes. I know a lot of women today who want prenups and the husbands don't want them. It's whoever's making the money. But I will say this about prenups. You need a lawyer, she needs a lawyer. You cannot go and do a prenup right before you get married. When people do that, those prenups get thrown out the window because they will claim and say and have an argument for, I was under extremely undue influence to sign this agreement before the wedding. And those agreements get thrown out, even if there's disclaimer language. And both of you need attorneys. And prenuptial agreements can often be like a negotiation. And you can learn a lot about your partner that it's not always pretty. I'm not saying you, but one can learn a lot about their partner that's not always pretty when you do a prenuptial agreement. And once the prenuptial agreement is done, if it's a reasonable prenuptial agreement, it goes in a file. It doesn't get looked at again. And it won't matter unless the day comes that you need to pull it out. And that's for a first-time marriage. Okay, you're a second-time marriage or a third-time marriage, and you've got kids and custody issues and support for your first wife, you definitely need a prenup.
What is the most important thing we should have talked about that we didn't talk about?
Stephen, we've talked a lot about money today, but money's just a tool. So what we actually haven't got to talk a lot about is using money just to free yourself to live your best life. And you don't have to have money to live your best life. Again, money is just a tool. So what's most important in life? I'm going to say things that people know. Health. I started following you because of all the shows you did on health. Love. People hold on to love way too much. Gratitude. Being consistently grateful for the life you have. Friendship. Loving your friends fully. And the last thing is fun. I think people go through life and at some point they stop designing their life. My grandmother used to say, you got to dream it, design it, and do it. And she's like, and you're going to run out of time. So what I would say to anybody is like, you've got this one beautiful moment in time where you're here. What do you want? And start working on that today.
You listened to the episode with Tony Robbins, though.
Yeah.
You've referenced him several times in this conversation.
If someone were to ask me who is the greatest mentor and the greatest influence in my life besides my grandmother and my father, it's Tony Robbins. So I went to Tony Robbins seminars in the early 90s, back in the day when he had an infomercial with audio cassettes. And I went to a program that he taught in Hawaii. He had this big hotel called the Waikoloa. And he did an exercise. This is it's like I remember like this was yesterday. He said to the room we were in, and there were, 1,000 of us in this room. He said, how many of you have a dream that you're not working on? And we all had dreams. And so he got us into a peak state, and he had us work on our dreams.